Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Nitesh. He is the founder at Chaidex as well as Bramble. His expertise mostly lies in finding, interoperability solutions in the Web3 ecosystem. He has worked for some time in the Web3 space. Chaidex is an interoperability multiple staking uh, protocol, which is alive currently, but it's in its beta. Right now, users can only add their wallets and get like an overview of that. But in a month's time, the staking and restaking protocol would also be live on the platform. This was an interesting conversation because we kind of touched and retouched a lot upon how interoperability is still a problem that nobody really has a proper solution for. And that is what he's building for. And I would love for you guys to hear this. This is a pertinent problem that he's trying to solve. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Nitesh. Thanks so much for making the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Tarusha, and thanks a lot for inviting me on the show.
It's my pleasure to have you here. So, for our listeners, can you tell us a little about your background and how you got started in the Web3 space?
Sure. I'll start with my name. My name is Nitesh Mishra. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm currently co-founder of Chaidex. It's a multi-staking protocol that enables P2P and local stable currencies. Given that introduction, I my journey in Web3 began. There's no exact date when it exactly began, but a bit since I was in college in 2011 in my engineering college, I kind of mined Bitcoin. I mean, not exactly mine, but I gave my computational power to basically a mining pool, which was in Russia.
Hmm.
And I did it in my college with the help of one of my professors. Only at that time, he and I had this knowledge about how to do it. So that was
Right.
my first, and for the next 5 to 6 years, last contact with blockchain or cryptocurrency in general. Okay, now fast forward to 2016, I meet a guy who's returning from the US, is a good friend of mine, and is from Pune. So I traveled to Pune to meet him, and then he tells me a bit more about smart contracts and what Ethereum is doing, and that kind of clicks something. So that is the point when I started to read more about it, to understand more about it. I started doing my own research. But the best part or the worst part was that I had to do everything from scratch, because unlike today, like where you can just go on YouTube and start learning about Bitcoin from Bitcoin or blockchain in general or Web3 in general, there was no such I would say freedom, or no such materials out there, paid or unpaid, in any case, where I could learn everything from scratch. So that was an uphill battle, but that was actually a very fruitful battle as well, because that made me fundamentally strong for what
Right.
I wanted to do, and what I wanted to. I was very clear in my life. Post that, then after 1.5 year, I started doing quite a lot of research, part-time research job for many blockchain-based exchanges. I was mostly a ghostwriter, a research analyst, something like that. That's what I did for a pretty long period of time before I founded Bramble. So Bramble is still going on, but it is a research-based company that is solving the problem of interoperability from virtual
Okay.
machine level.
Okay.
So that is something that is going on, but we have kept it aside, and I'm completely focused on Chaidex. But between Chaidex and my first stint with learning blockchain, I've done many research roles. I've taught from IIT Madras. I used to teach students blockchain for 1.5 to 2 years. I've done that as
Wow.
a full-time job as well. Yeah, but it was on all online courses that you get to do in upgrad, or great learning or things like that.
Right.
So I used to teach to postgraduate diploma students from scratch to scratch, everything about a blockchain and cryptocurrency, or permission blockchain, non-permission blockchain. So yeah, that's a bit more about me than I should have spoken.
No, no, I'm glad that you shared a very comprehensive introduction about yourself and your background. So, you kind of stumbled into the Web3 space vis-a-vis mining, and that is kind of how I got into the space as well. But
Yes,
that
yes,
this was
yes.
like in
I mean,
2011.
I wouldn't say. Yeah, I wouldn't say, I got into Web3. Like back then, there was nothing called Web3, to be frank.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. There
This
was no
term
term like
Web3 was,
Web3. Yeah.
yeah, there was no term. And plus, it was more of a curiosity project for me. So there was this friend of mine who just read something about Bitcoin. And he
Hmm.
told me, okay, now if you invest, like back then it was how much, $100 worth of $100. So by the end of this year, you'll have $1,000. So I was like, what kind of stock this is? I was
Right.
so this is what ignited the curiosity in me, because then I couldn't find it anywhere. So I
Hmm.
stumbled upon it's white paper. I read 80% of the white paper. I did not understand back then, to be really frank. But the only thing that then I did my own research. I started going to different places on internet. I stumbled upon this company that used to pool electricity, or let's say that used to pool your computational power from multiple areas, so that they can be the validators of that particular block. So it's for 2.5 months I did that, but that was just about, like, I got 2.5 Bitcoin back then. After 6 to 7 months, I sold it and I forgot about it completely. Up
Hmm.
until 2016, like for 5 years, I was like blank, did nothing. I had no idea what was going around in the world, at least in Web3 world, or blockchain world at all. So that was just about it.
Right. Yeah. There must be so much regret now for selling those
I
Bitcoin,
mean,
but
I mean that. I mean, I'm at this point when I'm like done with all the kind of regrets I had to do.
right. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that is interesting because you use one of those cloud platforms, and we had actually, like, initially in 2011, so we
Mhm.
had a data center, and that we had a
Oh,
lot of
that's
hardware.
good.
So that is how we thought, okay, let's like repurpose this hardware to turn this into
Mhm.
machines that can mine. We weren't mining Bitcoin; we were mining stuff
Mhm.
like Zcash. And because
Oh,
Bitcoin
nice,
would have
nice,
taken
nice,
so
nice.
much. Yeah, so that it was early days. I think it was, as you said, it's a lot of curiosity that kind of fuels
Mhm.
this initially. But then obviously, you stay back for the technology. But now,
Mhm.
when it comes to staying back, I'd
Mhm.
love to know from you what inspired you to create Bramble and then Chaidex. Can you tell us a little about both the projects, and what was like that inflection point where you thought
Yeah.
that, okay, let me build this?
Yeah. So I mean, so that again, that is a bit of a that is a bit of a journey, I would say, rather than coming to a very conclusive point. So the very first thing, I was working as a research analyst. That was my first and only job for 1 year. That I would say, between failed ventures and stuff like that. So for 1 year, I was, a research analyst and a consultant to a macro finance company. So while I was doing that, I had to go through quite a lot of researches and stuff like that. And as I was leaving the company, I was focusing more on getting a full-time job with teaching blockchain. So all these things culminated into one thing. So the very first part was the interoperability was always a challenge, and it's still a challenge. It's not being targeted the way it was being targeted, let's say 3 or 4 years back. Interoperability was such a big deal back then, like 4 years back. Right now, nobody is even talking about. We are talking about rest of multiple things, but not exactly that, because the narrative is lost. But is the solution there? I would say there is no exact solution, to be frank. So that is what inspired me to take up this both
That's
these
true.
projects. Yeah. That is something that inspired me. That is something that got me thinking that this is going to be a big problem 5 years down the line. So right now, as we can see, the problem has actually begun. There are multiple L2s, and there is no like threshold of who can become L2, or who can become L3, or who can become L1 as well. There are multiple L1s, L2s, L3s. They have to be consolidated in one way or the other, because the way information travels from one blockchain to another is, first of all, very vulnerable in nature. Very, very vulnerable. You depend on so many dependencies, third parties, and most of the hacks that happen, they happen on these kind of bridges. So first of all, there is no, fundamentally, you cannot transfer information from one chain to another chain, or one layer to another layer, or let's call it, you cannot exchange information between chains or between protocols. That's it. Okay. But in case you want to do, there are solutions available, and all of them are pretty vulnerable. They're so vulnerable that they're not exactly fundamentally as good as they were supposed to be when the blockchain was invented, like blockchain or the Web3 world was being invented or being, researched or being worked upon. So that is still a biggest problem, and this is what inspired me to actually bring in these solutions. And there are multiple solutions that we are all working on, but at the core of it lies the problem of interoperability, where I personally think, and I and the people who are working in my team, at any given level, we think that targeting the virtual machine or understanding the interactions of virtual machine can actually enable us to get to the one single source of truth. So that is what we are doing, and this is what our daily source of inspiration is, apart from definitely earning money. But that is one of the biggest and the most fundamental source of inspiration or the problem that we're trying to solve in the market.
Right. So this was initially your vision for Bramble, right? And what about
E-
Chaidex?
Yeah, so basically, Bramble. This is the vision of Bramble and Chaidex. I love to call it is the brainchild of that particular vision. So
Hmm. Because
after
both of them
multiple,
are basically working on interoperability and multiple,
yes, yes,
protocols, right?
definitely, definitely. So, why chai decks is the question that, people usually ask me. So, while I was solving, this problem at Bramble of, making sure that, that if there are multiple games that are being built on Web3, or there are multiple games that are being built on Web2, and they want to interact with Web3. So they need to come in a single source. They need to understand there's only one source of truth. Okay, they don't have to go from one chain or the other, or keep changing their protocols, or it's a difficult job. Okay, so that is what Bramble was supposedly doing while we were building it back then. So right now what Chidex is doing, it is becoming an exchange where you do not exactly have to depend on any third party for almost anything. So let's say you have Bitcoin and you want to interact with ETH, you can do that using Chidex. So, and you can do that without using any dependencies on Chidex, is what we are telling. So we are just a platform where you can come and interact with one wallet to the other wallet. So there are going to be other wallets, or there are going to be multi-sig wallets or things like that. But you can interact it on in the real time, and without any third party or without any bridging solution, or without having to wrap your tokens or unwrap your tokens, which actually eat in anywhere around 10 to 30% of your total asset value. So that is what Chidex is looking to do. I would say Chidex is built on multiple chains or multiple protocols. So we are chain agnostic, like we are not built for one particular blockchain. So that is one of the very first reasons and very first reason why we cannot be we cannot be bogged down by any one protocol, or we cannot be limited by just one protocol, which is the problem with other dexes or exchanges or anything like that. But I'm talking about decentralized one. I'm not talking about centralized one, because they are simply wallet to wallet exchanges. So that's a different thing.
Okay. So if you had to explain perhaps what Chaidex does in one line, how
Mhm.
would you
Mhm.
do that to, a potential user?
So so let me tell you one thing. My white paper is coming to be, it's still due, because we have changed a bit of narrative. We
Hmm.
have introduced restaking and staking, protocol on the protocol level. But if I had to tell it in one line, what we do is we enable a completely decentralized, a P2P exchange of multiple protocols without using any third parties or without using any bridging solution. And this is like the very, very basic of what Chidex does. But at the very same time, since this also enables us to take care of staking and restaking protocols, we have introduced it. It also enables us to introduce local stable currencies in different markets. So, for example, I am actually introducing local stable currencies of 5 different markets, one being India, Oman, Nigeria, Philippines, and Vietnam. So we are introducing local stable. In Vietnam, there's also already a local stable currency. I mean, ours is going to be the second. But apart from that, rest of these countries, our stable currency is going to be one. The very first that you're going to use.
Right.
And it depends, and it completely depends on from, let's say, regulation to regulation, how these stable currencies will be regulated and stuff like that. That's a different thing altogether. But we are going to do that as well. So that is our kind of go to market strategy. Not exactly,
Hmm.
but since there was demand, since I was working closely with so many people. So I know there is demand and there are liquidity providers for this. So that's why we enabled it.
All right. Okay. So tell me a little about what is the differentiating factor from, say,
Mhm.
other multi-chain staking protocols and P2P exchanges in the CeFi space.
Mhm. So I mean, so from CDFI spaces, I wouldn't say there's much of a difference from front end. The way you interact with one protocol with another protocol, not much. When I'm talking about CDFI on the front end, but when I'm talking about DEXs in particular, so let's take the example of Uniswap or PancakeSwap. Okay, so Uniswap is designed to be a protocols exchange. I mean, protocols exchange, it's a protocols exchange, which means that it only understands things that are on that particular protocol. If something that comes from different protocol, this particular DEX cannot understand it. So that is the very biggest differentiating factor. And let's talk about CDFI. So in CDFI, from front end, as I said, there won't be much difference. But from back end, CDFI again holds the custody of your assets, and we do not hold custody of any of the asset at any given point of time. If you're not staking with us, we're not holding any custody. But if you're simply doing P2P, we are not holding any kind of custody. But in CDFI, they have to hold your custody because they have to, in real time, exchange those tokens between multiple wallets in order to get you the token that you want. And with decentralized exchange, the actual decentralized exchange that are built on protocol, they can only understand one set of token architecture, and they cannot understand the different sets of token architecture. If they have to jump out of that token architecture, they will be forced to use bridges, which, as I already explained, is very vulnerable. So that is the biggest differentiating factor. That first of all, we do not hold custody of your any assets, and without doing that, we're able to make sure that your token from any protocol can be exchanged with any token of any other protocol. So that is what Chaidex biggest differentiating factor here is.
Okay. So essentially, you are providing a self-custody wallet. Like users have their own private keys, they own their private keys, they can export it. And
Yes.
you are enabling basically transfer of one token to the other.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, I mean, currently what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to enforce or, force any sort of, my own wallet. So you can come with any non-custodial wallet right now. Okay, let's say MetaMask or, Trust Wallet or any wallet like that. You can come with any non-custodial wallet and interact with other non-custodial wallet is what I am currently doing.
All right. Okay. So right now, currently, any user can go and sign up on Chaidex, or is it in a beta phase currently?
So, I mean, you can come and you can create your own user ID. I mean,
Hmm.
why we are asking people to create user ID is basically because you can come with multiple wallets. Okay, let's
Okay.
say you as a person are not going to have only, let's say MetaMask wallet. You can have Trust wallet, you can have BTC wallet, you can have Phantom wallet, you can have any other non-custodial wallet as you wish. So that's what we are encouraging people from now on, that you can actually come, claim your username as per your wish, and create your own account where at least the platform will understand, okay, this is the person who's having so many sets of wallet, so that you don't have to keep signing up again and again with different wallets. Or that's a very big hassle that we have actually solved for, because when we were in beta phase, so that is one of the things that we were facing issue. Let's say, for example, Tarusha, you want to interact with Nitesh, that is me. Now you come with MetaMask wallet once, and then again you come with, let's say, Trust wallet, which is your wallet only, and you want me to realize that that is your wallet, but I don't know as a user whether that is your wallet or not. So that is one thing that we have solved, and people can come and you can sign in and create their username and attach their whatever wallets they want. Now, if you want to exchange, the exchange will be live from next month actually. So currently, there was a beta phase for a very limited set of people. There was quite a lot of research and development that went after that as well. But now we are taking it live from next month.
All right. Okay. So right now, currently, a user can sign up and they can add their wallets, and
Yes.
then from next month, they would be able to do the exchange bit
Yeah.
as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So now, talking a little about, you have a token as well. So can you talk a little about the role of the token within the ecosystem of Chai?
Yeah. So the whole purpose of having a token So the very first thing was that, we were not very token centric from the very beginning of the project, to be frank. The token came, when we were, token came in later part of our development. Now, why did token come into place is very interesting because, as I said, there is, Chidex. When I say Chidex, it's just not an exchange. It's also a restaking platform, staking platform. It's also, a platform that is enabling multiple local stable currencies. So when I say all these things, and also we have a quick swap, we have a P2P exchange. So when I say all these things, then there has to be an ecosystem that binds all down to and give it back to the people. For example, let's say you are a person who's looking forward to interact with certain token on certain let's say certain protocol. Okay, so in order for you to have a voice in our ecosystem so that you can do as you wish, you need to have token, you need to participate and make your voice heard to the rest of the people so that they can come together and they can raise their voice or start simply accepting those different sets of tokens from different sets of protocols. Because at any given point of time, me as a human being or my company as an institution do not really want to stifle or keep understanding what the market demands are. Let the market decide what its demands are. So that particular token can work as a very good DAO, can work in a very good way where you can vote for a particular token to be in or to be out, something like that. So it's ultimately going to be people's choice to interact with certain protocols or to interact with certain tokens, and in order to do that, we need this token out there in the market. So that is one of the reasons why we have come up with the token. So that is the biggest utility, in order to govern, in order to see if what the market demands are, what people want to understand. So that is the biggest utility of the token. Now there could be multiple utilities which we haven't really focused on. We want people to come up with the utilities for now, but that is the biggest utility that we thought, because there is multiple offerings from the Chidex ecosystem as well. So there has to be one token, one common you know what can I say, one common specific point to talk about it. So that point is the Chai token. So that is what we thought. And the tokenomics is definitely not that difficult or not that out of the world. But it is the tokenomics that every person will understand. Every person in Web3 especially understands and can easily participate or purchase or hold or do whatever they want.
All right. It's basically a governance token. Is it, what is the timeline for it getting listed, or is it listed already?
It is going to be listed by the end of this month or the first week. So right now we are in IDO phases. So
Hmm.
currently we had a very good IDO, 100% IDO, a, a week back or something. And now we are looking to do IDO of around 800,000 to $1 million worth of IDO in this whole month, which is being lined up. And by after the end of all those things, we are going to launch it on KuCoin and Mexi. We have, currently we have deal with both of them. But there are a couple of other exchanges also which are interested. We are going to talk with them as well. But for now, I think KuCoin and Mixi are definitely confirmed, and we're taking it forward with them by the end of this month, or by the first week of August, whatever timing they give us. So the date has to be confirmed yet. For that, you'll have to keep in touch with Chidex, maybe on Twitter, so that
Right.
you'll
That
understand that. Yeah.
you're updated on the, when
Yes,
the
yes.
exact
We keep
timeline.
announcing and we keep yeah, we keep announcing and we keep updating our users who want to purchase us.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little about the automatic restaking feature and what is the kind of advantage that it provides the users?
So the very I would say the inspiration, did I draw the inspiration? So right now what happens is, there are multiple pools on our exchange. So I'm going a bit deep, but not that deep. I want everybody to understand, like people who are new to Web3 and also not new to Web3. So the very first thing is we have multiple pools. We have treasury pools, we have liquidity pools, and things like that. So while we were, while our beta phase was working, while our beta phase was on for those 2 months, I saw one thing, and I saw that our treasury pool was essentially lying there just like that. People were interacting with it, people were staking in a liquidity pool and everything. But at one point, we thought that treasury pool can be used, and there are multiple treasury pools on multiple protocols that hold so many other tokens. but we hold mostly native tokens and stable coins for now in our treasury pool. So we wanted to use that pool in order to give benefit to the people. So for example, let's say you have come with Bitcoin and you have exchanged Bitcoin with us, and we have that Bitcoin with me. Okay, I have that Bitcoin and I've given you some other token. And now at the end of the, let's say, a month or so, you again want that Bitcoin back. So for that month, at least what I can do is I can make Bitcoin to a good use that may earn some APY, okay, and then give the benefit back to you rather than just making it sit idle over there, which will be definitely on chain, which even you as a user can, see whether where your Bitcoin is, how is it working, how much yield it is generating, and stuff like that. So that is what we thought that automated restaking is something that we should be concerned about. But there's one more thing that we are going to make sure that it is as safe as possible. Now, when I say safe, which means I'm taking things on chain. I'm making sure that those things have a proper record on proper blockchains so that it can be seen, it can be interacted with the users whose asset is it in the first place. So that is one thing that we are doing. Let's say you come with BTC, or BTC can be used for greater work, and that BTC can be divided again. The APY can be divided in such a way, one section of your BTC can be used by our platform itself to generate some earnings on daily basis. One can be used for a long term staking in some protocol that gives BTC in return, or some can be used in some other exchanges as a liquidity, so that a daily liquidity APY is also maintained. So it is going to be divided in multiple areas. So your asset is going to be safer always. I mean, that is going to be divided in multiple parameters. So that is something that
Okay.
automated
So this
restaking is something they're working. Yes, yes. So,
Okay. So my next question was about how are you keeping the ensuring the safety and robustness of the platform? Can you tell us a
yeah.
little about that?
Yeah, so as I said, there are multiple ways we are ensuring. So insurance is something that we are actually looking forward to have on our platform as well. So
Okay.
insurance, and that is one of the reasons why we have so many, why we are, going the stable currency route. As I said, I'm going to introduce multiple stable currencies in multiple countries and multiple regulations. So the reason is, when there is a market volatility, as for example, just day before yesterday, we saw how badly, the Bitcoin performed. Okay, but I mean, it's a temporary thing. All of us understands, but there's always a certain, let's say, fear in the market of these things going on. So ultimately, what we do is we initially convert all your tokens into stable currencies. Then and there itself, because we have to make sure that whatever asset value that, let's say, you're coming with $100,000 worth of any token, we want to make sure that your $100,000 of the asset value is maintained. In fact, it is being earning something or the other on that. So that is something that we are ensuring, and we're keeping everything on chain, which means you can also have a look, where it is earning, how much it is earning, and you can be, secure about it, because everything that is happening where all the informations are being on chain and they are being logged, or they are being, worked in some way or the other by some protocols. So that is where we maintain. So if I have to talk about a very basic security, as you said, how are we ensuring or how are we securitized? So if I only have to talk about security, not about the insurance, the security is maintained in the very fundamental way, that we are making sure that we are going to the best particular protocols like Ethereum itself, or the Solana itself, or the BTC itself, to maintain the security. We are taking everything on chain so that everything is secure in nature. Now, about insurance, there are multiple ways. Your staking is one of the ways. Converting them into stables and rotating in the market is another way. It is also acting as a hedge against inflations when the markets are down or very volatile or anything like that. So these things are very much in place. If I have to explain, it'll take kind of almost half of our both of our day and time. But the white paper is going to be announced very soon, within a week. So I would recommend you guys to read a bit more about it there.
All right. Okay. I will be sure to keep on a lookout for the white paper.
Yes,
You've mentioned many
yes,
times
yes,
that you're introducing stable currencies for five nations. Can you tell us a little about how you're
yes.
going about doing it? What is the regulatory
Yeah.
compliance that you're looking at? Is there any that you're looking at currently, or is it in a gray area?
We do not love to work in a very gray area, to be frank. We love to work on everything on a very transparent basis. So I wouldn't name any country as such, the countries that I've already named. I'm not going to, name the working. I'll explain you the basics behind, you know, areas where, the cryptocurrency is not regulated and areas where the currencies are regulated, cryptocurrencies are regulated. Let's say in country A, the cryptocurrency is regulated. What we are going to do is we are going to back these stable currencies by the fiat currency of that particular country itself. Okay, and maintain 1:1 ratio. Again, how are we maintaining it? It's a bit detailed view, but I'm just giving you the surface level knowledge of what we are going to do in countries where cryptocurrencies are regulated. In countries where the cryptocurrencies aren't regulated, we are basically going to back it by the other very regulated stable currencies. Okay, so in that case, the things are going to be crypto to crypto, but the ratio is always going to be 1:1. Like, for example, in country B, where the fiat, whatever fiat is, the fiat is some sort of dollar. Okay, so $1 of that fiat is always going to be equivalent to $1 of the stable currency of that company, of that country that we are going to introduce. So 1:1 ratio is going to be maintained in both the cases, but the way we are backing them is going to be different in countries where it is regulated, countries where it isn't regulated. So there's going to be no gray area about anything. The only thing is, people will have to do their due diligence before, very much investing into it. But at the very same time, 1:1 ratio will always be maintained. They are also automated, and also they'll be audited in case of, regulated areas. And in case of non-regulated areas, an audit will be sent every quarter to the users for them to understand how much backing is there and how much is in the market, how much is supposed to be burnt and how much is supposed to be minted extra. So that is we have taken care of, because that is what maintains the 1:1 ratio in both the cases.
Right. So do you guys have like a, because this is tokenizing of real world asset in a way,
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
kind of, yeah.
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 So do you have, you're saying that, insurance is something that you're potentially looking at, but do you also have like
Yes.
a custodian for these? How are you ensuring the security of
Hmm.
the one is making sure that it's, always one, there is 1:1 backing?
Yes. So in case of regulated countries, countries where the cryptocurrency is regulated, definitely the insurance is fiat itself. The fiat itself, the amount of fiat we have. As I said, there's going to be audit every quarterly. There's going to be a quarterly audit of how much we are holding and how much is being circulated in the market, so that
Who's
we
going to
will
be,
understand that
doing
how
the
much we
audit,
have to.
perhaps? Are you like involving anybody as a third party for the auditing and the custodianship?
Yes, yes, that has to be done. Those third parties have to be both from on-chain and off-chain parties. Off-chain, when I say off-chain, auditors are, your government auditors, or auditors certified by the government itself, because if we're coming under their regulation, we'll have to do that. And also by on-chain regulators, as on-chain auditors as well. The companies that are behind, auditing the tokens, the tokenomics and things like that. So both the audits will be sent simultaneously to the public and will be made public every quarterly, for not only for them but also for us to understand how much stable currencies has been minted, how much needs to be bought back and burnt, or how much has to be minted if there's, let's say, surplus backing, but very limited things that are going on, very less circulation. So in both the cases, audit on-chain and off-chain are going to be there published, which will give us idea, and also the general public the idea of how much burning or minting is supposed to be done on a very regular basis. So that, a regular burning and minting allows us to maintain the 1:1 ratio. And the both the audit plus the backing itself is the insurance and security of this whole ecosystem, stable currency ecosystem.
All right. So auditors, can you name your auditors or your
Right
custodian?
now, right now I cannot. Like, I'll have to publish it, like, publicly. I will be
Right.
publishing it publicly. Yes.
Right. It'll be a part of your white paper.
Yes, yes. Not just white paper. I mean, part of my announcement, part of my, whenever we take it, we'll have to take it on all social medias, so that,
Right.
things have to be public in nature, because that what creates, transparency in the ecosystem. So we'll have to do it in a later
Right.
part of our journey.
Hmm. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So interoperability is something is like a major focus for you, right? That is how your vision
Yes,
kind
yes,
of
yes.
began as well. And what
100%
are the kind
yes.
of challenges that you see on a macro level in Web3 vis-a-vis interoperability? Because like you rightly pointed that, right now, uh, even now, it is still a challenge, and there is no particular product
Mhm,
or platform that has found a
mhm.
very good product market fit where,
Right,
you are
right,
basically that problem doesn't exist, like it becomes a thing of the past. That has not happened, and with
right,
new chains coming up left, right,
right.
center, even in this
Mhm,
particular phase of the market, it remains a challenge. So
mhm.
what is your view
Right.
on the kind of challenges that are there vis-a-vis interoperability in Web3 currently?
So, I mean, let me start with a very small trivia, if I have to be honest. Okay, in if you take the research, like I cannot go that deep again, sorry, but in case someday or the other, I'll post it on my Twitter on my LinkedIn as well. So with the name of those protocols that have failed in past. So let's take the year 2022 itself. Just after just before the bear market began, and just before the bull market ended. So all the hacks that we talk about, all the hacks in the year 2022 itself, 95% of those hacks took place on all the bridging solution. Okay, now what exactly is a bridging solution? Now, a bridging solution is essentially a bridge that is supposed to talk or act as a bridge between two different protocols. And the very shocking fact is it's not just about two different protocols built on two different virtual machines altogether. It's also about, two different sets of protocols built on same virtual machine. Let's take L1 and L2, any famous L1 and its L2. For them to interact as well, sometimes they end up using bridging to swap or to transfer the tokens amongst themselves as well. So, I mean, when I say this, why this is a big problem, because this is when a person, when you as a user want to convert your tokens from one protocol to another protocol, you either have to depend on centralized exchanges, you go to centralized exchange, or you have to depend on this bridging solution. But when you use the bridging solution, you know how hard, how difficult it is to use a bridging solution. Point number Point number two, let's say you come up with $100 worth of token A, and you want to convert it into token B. By the time you go to that bridging solution, wrap your tokens, then pass it through that bridge, that unwrap and burn that token in that particular protocol, by that time 10 to 30% in many cases of the tokens overall asset value has been reduced. So on an average, you're going to receive anything between 90 to $80 of the $100 that you essentially had. So first of all, there is no security, and even after security, your asset values are declining. So this is thing that I personally believe has forced the whole ecosystem to go on a very central exchange or hybrid exchanges or CDFI solutions, where we do not exactly worry about the custody. We mostly worry about how much gas fees or how much asset value is going to be retained after the use of it. That is one of the biggest problem that is happening right now, like as we speak, and has been happening since some years, like 2 3 years down the line it has been happening. Now let's talk about a bit about the present and the future. So presently, as you can see, there are like at least on top of my mind 30 layer 2s, if not less. There are minimum 30 layer 2s that are very popular, that have their own set of people that are solving their own set of problems, and their interaction with L1 is very limited. Okay, and there are also fights amongst various L2s, and I'm talking about L2s only built on Ethereum virtual machine. I'm not at all talking about L2s that are built on any other virtual machine, because I haven't seen any L2 built on any other virtual machine as of now. If there is, then I think I may have to study it, but I can see it right now in EVM itself. So the consolidation cannot happen unless and until you have a common source of truth. Okay, so that is also the biggest problem. The source of truth is now kind of divided, or is different for different layer, and is different for some different layer, whether it is L1 or L2 or something like that. That should never have happened in the Web3 ecosystem at all. The source of truth. Now let me give you a very layman's example when I'm talking about why interoperability is important, like very very important. Let's say tomorrow your government gives out, let's say your rental agreement or the home ownership agreement in NFT, RWA NFT, let's call it. Okay. So as per that NFT, you become the owner of that house. Okay. And that NFT is built using one particular, token architecture of one particular protocol. Now, what if somebody else builds, same NFT or RWA on some different protocol? Then there are two different sources of truth. Now you again have to depend on the government because that NFT was issued by government. That's why you're considering it like to be the honest NFT. And the NFT that is being considered by some random person on some random chain, you're not considering it. Okay. This means again you're depending on the government. Whereas the source would have been the government and you both should have, verified it from one single source of truth. So again, there could be multiple sources of truth, and there's no way that they're interacting with each other. Or you'll have to keep, implementing the same, NFT, RW, and all the protocols that are ever built and are ever going to be built. That's a very tiresome process, and that's a very, not a very good product process, I would say. So that is one of
Hmm.
the reasons why interoperability is important. You
Yeah.
need to have one single source of truth.
That is true. Like interoperability becomes very important, especially in this multi-chain bus that we are in currently, and for ease of use as
Right.
well for the user, right? Because the user cannot be expected to
Yes, yes,
know the
100%.
ins
It's
and
only
outs.
for the welfare of user.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right,
So
100%.
again,
I mean, come on,
yeah,
my dad is not going to understand it. He still does not understand
exactly.
anything.
Yeah, no, like it's if you want to be onboarding like the next million users on Web3, then you can't expect to you can't expect the user to be educated enough to about this particular matter to know the ins and outs. You have
Yes,
to
yes,
create a
yes.
product that actually, is solving a problem for them and they're going to stick to it. This is something that has been a pretty much a repeated narrative in all of these podcast
Mm.
episodes that I've done so far. Everybody seems to think the same thing, that it is very important to talk about, the technology, but expecting the potential user to be completely educated about it and to learn about it is a, perhaps a wrong
Right,
expectation to have.
right,
You
right,
need to build a product that is easy and that is convenient, that is solving a problem,
right, right.
which without really requiring definitely the
100%.
need for, the user to understand the ins and outs. So I think I concur with you there, and obviously interoperability is a very
100%.
pertinent challenge. Now, I again want to touch
Right,
upon the stablecoin proposition that you have. If you could like tell us a
right,
little about how it benefits users in these particular geographies. You mentioned Oman, Philippines, Nigeria,
right.
India, and Vietnam.
Mhm, mhm.
What is the advantage that it gives the users?
So let me put it this way. Okay, I'll give you three different narratives of the three different countries altogether. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, now let's talk about India, Oman, and Nigeria. Okay, three different countries, three different geographies, and three completely different economies. Okay, whereas Oman is a very developed country, a very developed economy, has no challenges like India or Nigeria. India is a developing country, has a very different set of people, has a very price or let's say value centric people, and they have a different set of thinking when it comes to economics. Now let's talk about Nigeria. Very upgrowing, very strong, I would say, but still not at par with multiple economies of many countries. Okay. Now
Hmm.
all three of them actually view this stable currency from their own set of perspective. If I have to give you one example, let's talk about Oman. So Oman, what they think that the stable currency becomes a base layer for their all DeFi or fintech movement that they will have in the future in their country. So
Hmm.
again, that works as a Thalesio model where they can have the stable currency, and it can be used by multiple fintech companies, payment gateways, multiple institutions in order to have this conversation, interaction. Because let's be very frank, no? Every country has UPI set of model. Even if they, if even if they, let's say implement what UPI has done in India, there's still going to be challenges. Let's say, for
Hmm.
example, let's take Germany. If India implements UPI in Germany, Germany is a very cash-centric country. They seldom use even debit or credit cards, to be frank. They use it very, very less for a very developed economy. So that's what. So this is where stable currencies come into play. Onboarding, offboarding can only be done once. You just have to worry about onboarding and offboarding of any user, any institution, or the country itself just once. Once you are onboarded, you can actually seamlessly throughout your ecosystem, wherever your token is accepted, you can go there, interact with that particular protocol, DeFi, in fact, fintech if they accept it. You can go everywhere, and at the end of the day, when you want to realize it in your bank account, you can realize by one simple offboarding. That's it. So actually, the common point is it becomes very easy to interact with multiple, other sets of protocols, DeFi, be it fintech, or things that are going to be used in the future. So it becomes very easy for a person to seamlessly travel from product to product, protocol to protocol, or user to user in that case. Okay. So onboarding and offboarding depends, it depends on the kind of regulation you are, it depends on the kind of, uh, software or hardware you use. But at the very same time, it's just a one-time job. Once you're inside the system, you're very free to roam around. But I was talking about Oman. So Oman sees it as a base layer for whatever DeFi or fintech development that they're going to do in future can be done on this particular stable currency, and they realize that it's very different from CBDC, because CBDC is, definitely again kind of a cryptocurrency that is being given out by the government for a certain set of responsibilities. That's it. It's not as free as stable currencies. And let me talk about stable currencies in country like Nigeria. So for them, stable currencies acts as a hedge against volatility in the crypto market. Now, why did I say hedge against volatility or inflation? Because let me tell you one thing, that the Nigerian naira is also falling as compared when compared to dollar. At the very same time, Nigeria is not a very crypto-friendly country. But without being a crypto-friendly country, they are growing at the rate of 1,700 to 2,000% per annum. This means that people in that country are struggling to have second source of income, and cryptocurrency becomes their second source of income. Trading cryptocurrencies becomes a very good second source of their income. So for that country, stable coins becomes a hedge against inflation, or maybe a hedge against their own volatility of their tokens. So for them it is different. Again, for India it is different. It becomes a place where they can park and use it. They can park their assets and then use it for future considerations. So that is, I mean, every country has a different take on what they use their stable currencies for. I mean, there's no common point, but the common point being, I mean, it's a seamless interaction between multiple products as a user. So, I mean, that is the base that I'm actually keeping.
Okay, so this basically becomes like, as you said, a baseline for users to, start and continue with
Yes,
in their journey for multi-staking.
right,
All
right,
right, so
right.
it adds a layer of convenience there.
Yep, yep, definitely does.
So you had mentioned that, the token is like a governance token and the holders can participate in the decision-making process. So is this live
Right.
currently, or is this something that is going to become live in the coming months?
It is going to become live after our TG. It'll become live
All right, okay. So right
because
now,
the
people
governance
can
is going to
accumulate.
happen on. Yeah,
Chain.
right now they
Yeah.
can accumulate. Yeah, right now they can accumulate. Right now we are doing our IDO on multiple platforms, and if you can participate on those IDO platforms, I don't know, there are certain maybe rules, restrictions, or sometimes they're open. And
Hmm.
if not, then you can participate while we are going TG. So definitely, I mean, you can definitely participate once you have those tokens, and the announcements will be made, consecutive. Every month there's going to be a new announcement. An epoch cycle will be decided where you will understand whether you have to participate, not participate, or just take and reap your reward. So whatever it is, and multiple things.
Right. So can you
Yeah.
tell us a little about the next big milestone for you guys?
Um, Next big milestone is TG. Like we are very focused right now. The whole team is looking forward for the date of TG. Looking
Hmm.
forward for all the IDOs that are lined up to happen, which are going to happen on multiple dates. Even before 2 days before IEO, that is TGE, we are going to have one more IEO. So I mean, the whole team is currently working on. I personally think that is going to be our biggest milestone for now. That is what I can think of.
Right. Okay, wonderful. And what are the kind of okay, so now just like sort of going a little macro and zooming out
Yeah,
from the product itself,
yeah, yeah.
there are you are somebody who critiques new age economists quite a bit. So, I would love to know your how do their perspective influence your decision making in creating your vision, and what which ones are perhaps the ones that you can recommend to even our
Mhm.
listeners so that they can learn something new as well.
What I used to do before, if you would recommend, but at the very same time, the problem is, I cannot be very choosy while picking up a person like, okay, so this is the person you should be listening to, or this is not the person you should not be listening to. Because you see, I have a different perspective concerning my own company, concerning my own outlook of how Web3 ecosystem works, or concerning a very different outlook of how, the economics of a country particularly works. So for me, like, if I have to say, like, if I, blatantly put out, any person or any such comments, then it would be wrong on my part as well. So I mean, it's completely up to you who you follow, who you do not follow. But for me, as you asked, the very first question that you asked, like, how does it influence my decision making? Like, how do these people's, discussions or things influence my decision making? So let me tell you one thing: it does not influence much, because I have a very different, outlook, and I work on a trickle down effect. So if you understand trickle down effect in a very layman's language, it's more like what people perceive one thing and what is the end goal of that particular thing, and how does the end goal is kind of manipulated or reached due to the perception of a particular person or particular market. So I work on that trickle down effect. So if you have to ask me how has that affected me, then let me tell you one thing: on the very basis level, on the very basic level, or the product level, or the tech level, it hasn't, because I'm still working for interoperability, and that is still the biggest source of inspiration, problem solving, whatever you call it, something that I very much look up to and look forward to solving it. That is still there. But when you talk about how to bring in the people to understand this thing, yes, that has to be done from product level. So in that way, yes, I'm being affected. So as I said, I introduced multi-chain restaking, multi-chain staking. I've introduced stable currencies. So these are going to be the point where these markets can touch me, or these markets can come and inside the ecosystem then to understand what I'm exactly solving. So definitely they do have an impact, but not that great of an impact, because at the basic level, I'm looking forward to solve this problem. And it's just not me. It could be people like you. I can work with you, or people, so many people out there, which I personally believe can solve this problem, with me or without me. That's a different thing. So the problem still persists. I want to solve it, but on the surface level, yes. From the product level, I would definitely like to lure in people using the languages that they understand. So right now, the narrative in the market is, as I'm seeing, restaking is the narrative in the market. RWAs are the narrative in the market. There are multiple layer twos, layer three coming. They are the new narrative in the market. So that is there. So I may use such narratives to lure in the people, but at the end of the day, I'm going to solve a very fundamental problem. So that's what I'm looking forward.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful perspective to have here. Can you also now perhaps
Right.
touch upon the kind of challenges that you've faced so far? And I think because we are running short on time, I think this will be our
Yes, yes,
penultimate
sure, sure.
question before we wrap it up. But I would love for you
Yeah.
to touch upon the kind of challenges, because I think that can be, your story
Mhm.
might resonate with somebody else who's building.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, as an early stage builder, the very first challenge is always, the capital, like how to gain capital, and the very next challenge is how to gain the trust. Because the why I said the capital is the first challenge, not the trust is the first challenge, because the access to capital is now being consolidated again back to where we began 10 years back. So 10 years back, the access to capital was with very few people. Okay. And in between from 2014 to 2024, the blockchain came into place. Everything became mainstream. Quite a lot of retail people started coming in. They became angel investors, or they became the very first retail investors of your particular product. But again, all those things have been consolidated and being given back to these institutional people only. where they're deciding on a new technology with a very old concept. So the access to capital is again a new challenge for people who are building now, and it will be a challenge if you're unable to sell a very good story in the market. I mean, that thing has again become a main thing in the market. The second thing is, how do you gain trust? Like, how do you gain trust that you're the right person to solve the problems that you have mentioned? Like, for example, if I'm talking way too much about interoperability, why am I the only person, or why I am one of those person who can actually solve it? Is the trust that you have to build in the market. So these are the two very basic, and I think since 2022 or 23, the money is again going back to institutions. Institutions have started purchasing cryptocurrencies, holding them, and then consolidating the market price. The time is not far when the market prices of the cryptocurrencies are going to be decided by the way institutions are working, or the way institutions are interacting, or if they're proving to be good or bad holders of these currencies. So that time is not that far. I think by 2025, this will be a very open public debate that we'll be having. So capital access, one of the problems that is going to happen and is happening right now as we are speaking. Second is, how do you build trust in the market? So these are the two challenges that I think any newcomer will face, and again, can be faced by people who are still building or have built in the past as well. So yeah, that's there.
Right. And how would you recommend perhaps overcoming these?
The very first way is, sticking to the fundamentals, and, making sure that, you do have some proof. Like, for example, nowadays, the very widely accepted proof of whether your product is working or not is whether you have, so and so many people on your, on your socials or not, people talking about your token or not. That is going to be there, but that is just, I would say, 20%. The 80% is definitely going to be whether whatever you're claiming, are you able to solve it via some MVP, or via some sort of, some way or the other, whether you're able to prove it or not. So that is I feel that is by far the only way to overcome it. Second comes the access to capital. The access to capital, since the narrative has changed in 1.5 years and still changing right now as we speak. So that is still, I mean, whatever I tell now, maybe 6 months down the line, that's not going to be, that problem may not be there. There could be some different problem altogether. So I exactly don't know how to tackle that, or advise you or advise anyone on that. But when I talk about gaining people's trust, at least your MVP will definitely go a long way, and I've seen MVP going a long way since so many times, like since past decade, no matter how many times they have been done. So I mean, you have to do that. You got to do what you got to do. That's it.
Right. Yeah, just keep building and making sure that you're staying true to your path.
Yes,
I
yes. I
feel
mean,
that
there's
you'll
no other
get there.
way. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is just there's no shortcut basically, and there is no
100% there
way
is.
that you can do like an overnight success. It takes years of consistent
Yes, yes.
building to actually get
And
to a place where you're comfortable.
yes, yes. At least in my case, that is true. I don't know. There are multiple people who are lucky in this environment who can have very good
I
stories to
don't
sell.
think
They
there's
can
there's
get.
anybody who does like an overnight sort of a success. I think it is always like
No,
consistent
there is
effort
no
and time.
overnight success. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
those moonshots,
I
like
so much
them.
agree with you.
Yeah, there are moonshots at times, but I really think that everybody, even the people who have like a moonshot, they, fail at some
Mhm.
point or the other, and they build up to the point where they
Yes.
reach. So that is like a complete misnomer. It's a
Right, right.
myth
That
that
is true. That
people
is
can
true.
really just hit it, they can get lucky, and luck plays a part certainly, but there are other factors as well, and we should try to control the ones that we can, right? Luck is not something that you can perhaps potentially control, but if you're working hard and
Right, right.
smart enough, you would
Mhm.
be lucky. So now
100%. Yes, that's true.
I would love to, I would love this conversation to keep going on because we've touched upon such important factors in we
Right.
interoperability and, just very relevant topics. But Nitish,
Mhm.
you are sadly out of time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you just one question that
Yes,
I
I'm
ask
so sorry.
everybody who comes on this particular
Uh-huh.
show. You've mentioned about the challenges and how to
Okay.
overcome them, but because you were also somebody who got into Web3 because of curiosity, and if there is somebody who is
Yes.
perhaps curious like you at this moment in time about Web3, about blockchain,
Mhm.
decentralized technologies, what would be your advice to them for them to start living on blockchain?
Uh, I mean, follow your curiosity. I mean, first of all, you have to. I personally think curiosity is a very wide, a very absurd not absurd, I would say. It's a very ambiguous. It's a very ambiguous word because you can be curious about certain things that I know there are people who are very curious about how the marketing in Web3 works. I'm very certain there are many people curious about how community building works, how the product itself works, or how the economics behind the whole ecosystem works. So I mean, I would just say the follow your curiosity, and apply whatever you have learned in different sectors of your life. Like for example, it doesn't matter whether you're from sports background, you're from science background, economics background, arts background. Whatever you have learned and whatever you're curious about, just try to build or try to interact with that curiosity plus the talent you have been generating or you have been honing since the past so many years of your life. So that's the only way. Like the central the if you draw a Venn diagram, the common point where your talent and your curiosity meets is the very sweet spot that you should start developing on that. Definitely, as Tarusha, you yourself mentioned, that it's definitely nothing is not overnight success. So I mean, please keep that in mind. First stroke isn't always going to work, and do not give up on that. Please keep working on that very sweet spot, and I'm pretty sure something good will definitely come out of it, because I'm a very good believer of nature. And if there are problems in nature, the nature itself provides the solution. We just have to be open for that. That's it.
Yeah, I think that is like wonderful advice. And, because if you are open to sort of solving, there are many things that can
Yes.
happen. You have to be open to learning and unlearning and building. And it's going to be a
Right.
little
Right.
hard, but following your curiosity will get you to places, because, you're solving problems that you are facing. And if you can
100%.
really validate that particular idea and see if there are others facing that problem, then, you have like a good idea on your hands. So that's really good advice, Nitesh.
Right. Right.
Thank you so much once again
Thanks a
for
lot.
talking to us. Any parting thoughts before we wrap this up?
Thanks a lot, Tarusha. I mean, the only parting thoughts will be, please, I mean, focus more on the fundamentals of the problem rather than just the narrative, because the narrative is always, the greed of the economics behind everything that is happening. So without following the narrative, I mean, please keep following the narrative, whatever is happening in the market, but stick to the fundamentals, because that is what got us to, being accepted worldwide. It got blockchain to be accepted worldwide. Let's stick to our fundamentals, and yes, definitely keep an eye on the narrative, but not work only because there's a narrative in the market.
Very, very good words to end this with. Do
Thanks a lot,
follow
Tarusha.
the trends, and do not just follow the trend for the heck
Yeah,
of it. So that
for
is
the
that
heck
is
of
what
it.
is important. Yeah. So thank you so much
100%.
once again, Nitesh, for speaking to us. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks a lot, Tarusha. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and that was a very beautiful conversation.